So I'm sitting here with Stephanie Gray, who's the Executive Director of the Canadian Centre for Bioethical Reform, based in Calgary, so it's great to have you here.
Thank you.
Now, you're pretty young to be an Executive Director.
Well, we're a fairly young organization. I was part of the group that founded the Canadian Centre for Bioethical Reform back in 2001, and I went into it right after graduating from UBC.
And what do you guys do?
We educate the public about the reality of abortion by humanizing the unborn child and dehumanizing the act of abortion.
Right, and then you go around and debate?
Right, yeah, we do a lot of education in high schools, universities. I've been out to Ontario a couple times to do debates.
No, it would seem to me that, particularly going to a university campus, I mean, York, I went to York, and York is like not the most open to pro-life kind of, campus in the world. So what kind of response do you get? I mean, were most of the people attending, did you get hecklers, or how does that?
Yeah, I have before, but last night it was a very, you could say, tame crowd. I think the vast majority were pro-life, if not one or two probably weren't, but they were respectful, just asked questions. I think one of the reasons I may not have had hecklers was that when the club tried to advertise the event, posters kept getting ripped down within 30 minutes of going up, so not very many people, I think, heard about it because of that.
Now, do you get the sense that even though people, let's say, attending your talk or your debate might be pro-life, that they still don't feel that they know how to make the arguments? So
right, and that's what I'm finding is the biggest problem, is a lot of people just don't know how to defend the pro-life view, and so they keep quiet on it because they, are afraid that they'll be stuck with their tongue tied, oh, I don't know what to say.
Yeah, like how do you prove that a human embryo is a human being? I mean, is that really what the argument boils down to?
Exactly, exactly. We point out the fact that although difficult life circumstances exist, the issue in the abortion debate is not whether they exist. We all agree. The issue is whether we can kill in order to deal with difficult life circumstances. And then a lot of people say, well, the unborn aren't human, so abortion doesn't kill, at which point we say, so then the issue is, are the unborn human? Let's look at the evidence to see if we can establish that conclusively.
Okay, so then what's the evidence? How do you know that the unborn, a human embryo, is a human being?
Well, the first point we start at is simply looking at the embryology textbooks used by medical students, nursing students, and those clearly state in secular schools that human development is a continuum that begins at fertilization. And besides reading in a textbook, we can make sense of it logically, because prior to fertilization, sperm and egg only have 23 chromosomes each. When they come together, they no longer exist. That forms typically, although not only, unless there's a genetic problem, but typically forms 46 chromosomes. And so your basic genetic makeup, your maleness, my femaleness, eye color, hair color, these things are determined at fertilization.
And it's all there right from the beginning.
Exactly. And the unborn have everything they need within them to move themselves through the stages of human development. So from the embryonic stage to fetal stage, and then post-birth, infancy, toddlerhood, teenagers, and then finally adults.
Exactly. Now, do you think that with the advent of DNA knowledge, that some of the thinking around this would have changed, but is that the case?
It is changing, but here's what's interesting is most people won't refute the scientific evidence. I mean, the average abortion supporter will say, okay, I know it's not a dog, a cat, or a fish. Human parents, it has to be human offspring. Living human beings has to be living offspring. But where the debate really centers is on this notion of personhood. People who support abortion will say the unborn might be genetically human, but then they divorce the idea of what a human is from a person, and they define personhood based on how you look or what you're able to do. And they'll say because the unborn can't do certain things because they're smaller than us, whatever the case may be, we can justify killing them. And the moment people go down that path, we remind them of the fact that newborn children and teenagers can be, smaller than an older person. Does that mean we can kill them?
What about, I was raped, so what do you, I mean...
Common argument we hear a lot, and a few things we say to that. We always acknowledge the fact that rape is a horrific atrocity and injustice. What makes it wrong is that an innocent human being, the woman, is violated. Well, what makes abortion wrong? An innocent human being, the unborn, is killed. And an analogy I point out to communicate that we can't kill in order to deal with the injustice another person committed on another individual is the following. I say, if you have a married woman who has sex on Monday and gets raped on Tuesday, let's imagine a month later she discovers she's pregnant. Now, let's say she doesn't know whose child it is, and in case it's her husband, she maintains the pregnancy. After the child is born, they do a paternity test and discover that it's the rapist's child, not her husband's. May she kill the child then?
Exactly.
Of course not.
Of course not.
Why then would we permit killing the child beforehand?
Right. So it's like, why would we allow this woman? She can't legally get revenge over on the man who raped her, but then we allow her to actually
kill
the other innocent victim of
and the key is to remember there can be and should be consequences for the rapist with regards to jail time and all those other consequences you'd have for committing an act like that. But the unborn are innocent. They're not the ones that committed this act.
And now, what about because the church teaching, I think, is quite clear. I mean, killing is bad. Human beings have inherent dignity from the moment of conception to the moment of natural death. The church does allow for provisions, sorry, not provisions, but to preserve the mother's life.
Well, how
does that work?
Right. There's another question that's often asked: is what if the woman's life is in danger? And our response is to say, if the unborn, as we know them to be, are equal in value to born people, then we don't put the woman's life above the unborn's, but neither can we put the unborn's life above the woman's. So in that case, we must make our best effort to care for both lives with the hope that if we intervene on this medical problem, that we can preserve both lives. If it's later in pregnancy, we may be able to do that with the advent of incubators and children being able to survive out of the womb earlier and earlier. In cases where that isn't the case, such as a first trimester situation which may arise, such as a tubal pregnancy, in that case, the unborn is in the fallopian tube, and as they grow and develop, that tube will burst. The bursting of the tube brings about their death because they're so young, and that can bring about the death of the woman. So in that case, what you can ethically do is remove the expanding fallopian tube. That's a medical problem. You're addressing it. In philosophy, there's this principle called double effect. Basically, doing one thing has an effect on another area, but it's described as foreseen. I see it's going to happen, but unintended. I don't want it to happen. So we always point out that's very different from abortion, which says, I'm going in directly to kill you. If I could save you, I wouldn't.
So it's a question of intent?
Intent is one thing, definitely, but it also comes down to the act itself. You cannot do an evil act so that good may come about.
Well, that's, I think, a great place to end because we've run out of time. But thank you so much. Stephanie Gray is the Executive Director of the Canadian Centre for Bioethical Reform based in Calgary. Thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless.
Thank you.